Hello everyone, my name is Kuldeep Singh and today we want to talk about Redux in our React application. So I'm pretty interested to do introduction to Redux. I hope so you are also too. So we'll try to understand the introduction here. We'll see what is Redux, why use Redux, problem without Redux, components of Redux, implementation of Redux, and the Redux DevTools. Starting from my introduction. So what is Redux? So Redux says that I'm a simplest thing that going to store the state variables. So I have something a word store here. I use store to handle all the states into a single variable. So Redux has four components. Number one is store. Number two we have reducer. Number three we have action, and number four we have provider. Redux can be used with your React application, with your Angular application, or it could be with your Ember.js. Redux has dev tools that helps me out to debug the application. Next one. So when I should use Redux and when I should not. So when you have an application where you have multiple state variables to hold and you want to share that variable to other components as well. So if you have a large scale application where you're actually going to have multiple state and if you wish to store that things and you want to share with other people, you have to use Redux in that case. So Redux will help me out to actually maintain my state easily. That's why I use Redux. So let's take an example here. The component 1 want to share the data to component 2 and the component 2 want to share the data to component 3. So on I will go to component 4 and I will go to component 5. And you can see very easily the data transfer from 1 to 2, 2 to 3 and 3 to 4 and 4 to 5 is going to make my application slower. And I never wish to actually make my application slower. So I use someone to actually help me out. So I want to make my application faster, optimized, and less complex. I ask my friend that is Redux. So Redux comes into the picture and helps me out to do this thing. So let's take an example about the real life. So a manufacturer. Manufacturer gives the goods to a distributor by putting some margin. A distributor does the same thing by putting some margin and goes to wholesaler. From that wholesaler, we go to retailer, and at the end, the customer gets the thing quite expensive. So e-commerce says that I can help you out and I can get the goods with a cheap price. So that's what I say. I don't need any mediators into my stuff. I want just a goods. I simply take from manufacturer to the customer. That's what the e-commerce does in nowadays. I hope so the example is quite clear to you. Understood? So friends, when I do this thing, let's take another example about it. So component 1 now goes to component 2 from 3 to 4 and 4 to 5. I don't need to do this thing now. I can simply share my data from component 1 by taking Redux application state data and simply send it to component 5 directly. No intervention of the component 2 and the 3 and the 4. I hope so it makes sense to you. Next one. Let's take an example that I don't know anything about Redux as of now. I'm quite far away from this Redux word. I just need to understand how exactly the application will work if I don't have any knowledge about Redux. I hope so. So let's take an example of it. So when we talk about my application that is large scale application, I have hundred of components. I have 10,000 of lines of code. I have my complex application structure, and now I have to maintain my state as well. So is it easy for me to do or not? Well, the answer is very clearly mentioned here. It's a nightmare, right? So, friends, it's a nightmare, exactly. So, I might be able to do this thing, but it will take a lot of effort from mine. But I don't wish to do this kind of stuff, right? So, I take my Redux to actually help me out. Before I take my help from Redux, I should understand what different components of the Redux and how they actually work. So, when we see about Redux, I can see different component. Number one is store. Number two, we have provider. Number three, we have reducer. Number four, we have action. So starting from the store. So what the store does? A store is very simple thing. It says that I simply hold all the state data. So what are the different components want to store the data? I will simply store in the single variable named as store. That's what the store does. But if I have to share the data among other components and the components want to share the data to their child and from that child to they want to send the data to their subchild, I have to plenty of things to do. But from that, I have one more friend of mine that is provider. So provider will take care of everything to share the data among every subchild to child. I don't need to worry about it now. After the provider guide, I have one word reducer. So what the reducer does? So it is just a pure function. This pure function takes two things. Number one, it takes state, and number two, it takes action. The state, current state, and the action, what to do. So let's take an example. I have simple thing. I have a counter variable that has a value as of now 1. So you say that Kuldeep, I want to do an action. I say, okay, tell me what action you want to perform. You say, I want to increment the value of that counter. I say, all right, I'm happy with that. Why not? We should do this thing. So when you say that action has to perform, you actually mention me that I want to do increment, but you're not telling me how to do. So when you say increment, that's just an action. But internally, how I will update the counter value by 1, that's what the reducer will do here. So reducer needs either number one is the state, that what is the current value of the state, and number two, what action you want to perform. So in my current scenario, my action is to increment. So I will do increment the value and return the state now. So I will return the counter with value increment by 1. That's what I will do my reducer. I hope it makes sense. The last one is an action. So what the action does is just a plain object. That action should contain one key with the name as type, and extra things can be there. So if you want to pass in some extra arguments, you want to pass some extra information, you can pass into the payload. So most of the time people use a payload as another key to pass some extra information to my action. I hope so it makes sense to all of you. So friend, next one is our implementation, how exactly Redux works. So I have some representation of the picture. I hope it will help you out to understand more about it. So you can see in the UI, the below you can see the UI. You can see in the UI I have $0 as of now. So I'm going to have two action. Number one, I have deposit action, and number two, I have withdraw action. So I hope so it's very simple and very clearly mentioned that if I have to withdraw my amount from my bank account, I should have that amount present into my account or more than that. So if I have to withdraw, I should have more than that amount into my account or equals. So current scenario, if I don't have amount, I actually deposit first. So I click on the deposit button. It triggers an action. It triggers an event. From that event, I dispatch an action. So I dispatch an action. Remember this word, I dispatch an action. So when I dispatch an action, it goes to my store, and store know how to update. So reducer will take care of everything. So reducer takes this action and extra information also, that is a payload here. So according to my action, the payload reducer will update my state, and whenever my state is getting updated, every component, whoever is accessing the Redux state, they will get information that state has been updated. So whenever the state is updated, the UI gets rendered again. The UI gets rendered, I get my new value from the state. And as of now, you can see the example here as well. It works the way that I'm expecting. So my reducer will work. It will update my state by $10. So my UI will say that I have $10. I can withdraw that $10. After I withdraw that $10, I can simply see I will get again 0 as my amount. I hope so it makes sense to all of you. So friend, the last one is our Redux DevTools. So what is the Redux DevTools? So whenever I have to play around with my Redux, I might get some complexity, I might get some issue with my application. So to rectify that kind of issue, to get the things done, I can go to Redux DevTools that actually help me out to debug my application. So don't talk about much about this thing. It's just a developer tools that actually help me out to fix the issues and see how my Redux is working internally. That's all guys. I hope so it makes sense to all of you. Thank you.